working meeting to go through the preliminary budgets that the departments have set. Basically, we're just going to go through and look at whatever big changes there are. We are still waiting for insurance rates for the FYI 26 year. They have not come in yet, so we can't really get a total on that. But I just want to make sure that we're not missing anything on what we're looking at. So I think we're going to start with Bob, because yours is the cleanest as far as the least amount.
Edley, it's just what I got on there. Electric costs has gone up. The filters budget this year for snow removal at all the stations, stuff like that, is up a little bit more. I think an increase of $1,000 on that should cover everything.
Mm-hmm.
Telephone's gone up a little bit, so the 300, and water tests have gone up because the lab is incurring more charges for the lab sampling that they do. They send out some of them.
Yeah.
And so I anticipate that going up about $1,000.
Okay. We're putting summer labor in that wasn't in last year?
Yeah, I think I will. I think I might get one guy
Okay.
for mowing and stuff, and maybe a little hydrant maintenance this year, painting them and stuff.
Do we have any last year?
We started off with two, well, one, and then we hired a guy, full-timer. And the one kid worked for half the summer anyways.
Okay. All right, so any questions for Bob on his line item budget?
And I'd like to bring up the compensation for emergency situations where I get called in.
I'd like to do that in an executive session for salaries for everybody.
Oh, all right, so
Okay.
that'd be in that one, all right.
Yeah,
Okay, that's
All right.
it then.
all right, no questions? All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
All
So
right,
now free to go?
sure.
All right.
We'll go on to fire. I know this is a new budget for you guys to deal with. Just gotta, I mean, the first thing that stuck out to me, there's nothing in there for drug testing.
So I combined that into our physicals.
Okay,
Because typically that's when we do it for the most part, is during the physicals. We do, and we haven't spent that much on physicals, but the only other time that we do that is if we suspect somebody or they've gotten into a vehicular accident.
okay. So there's money in the budget for it? That's,
Yes.
I mean, I just saw
Yeah.
we've gone from
Right.
15 to 0.
Yeah,
so.
we just consolidated it into the physical exams.
Are we still running random?
It's never been done since I've been here.
Okay, I'm gonna talk with Mike and then talk with Brooks Recreational on that,
Okay.
all right?
Yeah, they told me the name of a place that we would go through, but called DISA.
Okay,
I know the town, they come right to the chapel down in there.
okay, all right,
That's the CDL.
Yeah.
that's for
Well, that's
CDL.
it, right.
How are we dealing with retention plans now? Because I noticed that wasn't funded last year and it's not funded again this year.
Oh, that
In the line
was
item.
for the, at Christmas time type thing?
Yeah, the retention bonuses for the volunteers?
Right, I believe it was removed last year from the previous sheet, but I believe that we wanted to keep it going, I thought.
I would like to, but I'd like to see where the total budget lays out before we
That's fine.
add it in there.
That's fine.
If we have room, that's fine.
Okay. It doesn't seem to be as much as it used to be,
Okay,
you know.
all right. So is there any questions on fire, which is pretty much leveled from last year?
I just got a question about
Sure.
about the radios. I'm not sure whether it was Pelletier or Tobin mentioned that we're gonna have to change all radios? Do you
All
know
the
anything
frequency
about- do
bands?
you know anything about
Yeah,
that?
I mean,
Is that-
anything that I've heard from that there is,
Is,
and for one example, I knew that the police department had just received a grant for all new radios, and it was a pricey item, and as well as, you know, what we've been buying for portable radios at $5,000 a piece. So they're talking about going, I think, was it VHF or UHF or something like that, they're talking about going to that. And for that to actually happen, you're talking huge money every year, and
well, the price tag they threw out was, I think,
$400,000.
$500,000.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I mean, and you get some of these smaller departments, you know, that have a budget of only $10,000 per year to throw a, you know, you have to mandate that you have to change to a different frequency.
Right.
Unless, in a lot of these departments, they're saying, not unless the state's paying for it, because we don't have the money. So,
Yeah.
I don't, there has been chatter about it, absolutely, about going to a different frequency. But unless somebody's picking up the tab for it, besides these towns, I don't see it where it's knocking on the door right now.
And what about, the state police taking over county? Is that
county-
part of it, or are we gonna be?
No,
buying
that doesn't have anything to do with them. The state just took over sheriff's control out of the
Right.
jail. And as far as radio frequencies, I mean, they can do anything. I mean, they can go, you know, because they're put up a new facility, I believe, and updated it, so they can do anything and everything right now. So it's just a matter of if they really, you know,
So
put their
there's
thumbs up.
nothing that we should be looking into?
I don't think
right
there's anything
now?
we have to be looking to right now. Like I said, you know, the police department just got a grant for, you know, all new radios, and they said there's no money in the budget. We just bought all brand new radios at the old frequency, so we're not gonna go out and buy all brand new radios for the, so unless the state's picking up the tab, it's not gonna, you know, I don't see it happening right now.
Okay.
I don't think Motorola has radios.
Probably not.
They haven't started manufacturing them.
Right, yeah, I mean, any radio order we order now, they're telling us 6 to 8 months just to buy a portable radio
Right.
at $5,000 a whack.
At the frequencies we're using right now.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's, I wouldn't worry about it this year.
Okay. That's all I have.
Any other questions on
Yeah,
fire?
Chris, the fire chief's increase, how could you explain that?
That's not, that's just, that number's not gonna stay there.
Oh,
That's already been going to be changed. That was just a number somebody threw out that they thought we should move it up to,
okay.
all right?
Did they also see the capital?
This,
Yes.
Yes.
I need a lot more explanation on this chart. I looked at it and,
Yeah, so one quick thing there, you'll notice that at the moment, in terms of, if you look under vehicles for the fleet, tires and repairs, Dennis.
am I looking under, in this chart now?
No,
No.
so I'm gonna explain the reasoning for
Okay, so
that
where am I
chart.
looking for?
So,
On
first
the
page,
regular.
yeah, first regular budget, under, vehicles, fleet. The fleet manager, Captain Tinker, requested that, basically we double our, tire and repair, funds, because, currently, we have a number of, older and sort of out-of-date apparatus. If instead we can start to, and it's my recommendation that we do try and set funding aside for apparatus replacement on a schedule, then that funding would be able to, that number could go back down to its original.
So, on tires and repairs, I did have a conversation with Mr. Tinker, and I know that we're looking at one truck that needs specific amount of work. And what I'd like to keep the tires and repair portion of the line item budget at 24. And I asked them to get me a figure on what the thought was of how much it would cost us to bring that truck back into compliance. And that would be a warranted article. So that money will come from a different source.
Right, so unfortunately, that particular truck as is just to understand, it's due to NFPA, we can't bring it back into compliance.
Well, we can use it, bring it back into use. We can't, it'll never be NFA compliant.
Right.
Right.
So, anyways, all to say, you know, all of our apparatus have to be replaced at some point in time. And so, rather than having to, you know, grab a whole, you know, go out and get approval through a special town meeting for, say, the next ambulance replacement, if we were to take some of the funds from our ambulance fees and set those aside towards its own replacement, right? That's my recommendation, is that rather than trying to pay a fairly heavy price and have to go and get special town approval every single time that we need to replace a vehicle, instead sort of plan out ahead and try and set some funds aside on an annual basis.
How many years do you think we'll get out of this one?
This
5 years?
ambulance?
5 years, 6 years?
At least 5.
Right.
I mean, it somewhat depends on how much we put it
Use it,
into use,
right.
yeah.
And hoping
But-
to get more, you know, because it's heavier duty vehicle, so.
Yeah,
I mean, so we'll just gotta wait and see. It's one of those, you know.
yeah.
What would you recommend putting a month, yearly?
Putting aside for that,
We
for
used,
replacement?
I believe, didn't we usually, after we set it, I thought it was 50,000 a year?
That was
it
for the trucks, we never bought the
Yeah.
ambulance.
Right,
So
right, but
the-
I mean, it probably would fall under the same,
So for the ambulance, the way that I did it based upon what we just spent on this ambulance, around 70,000 a year, which is available in, the way that I looked at the ambulance fees that come back, and obviously you can and will choose to divvy that up how you want, but with the ambulance budget and 4 full-time employee salaries, we still have funds from those fees that can be set aside for the ambulance replacement, if that's what you chose to do.
I know you don't have a crystal ball, but
Yeah.
do you figure, say in 6 years or 5 years, you buy a new ambulance, it's gotta be twice as much?
I
Or,
certainly hope not.
oh, well, I mean, we, when we first started looking at ambulance, they were telling us 450,000,
right,
and
Right.
then this other ambulance fell in our lap and
right, but
saved
that may
us.
not happen again.
Oh, God, I don't expect it.
But I think again, that gives us the opportunity to start planning and, you know, 3
Right.
years down the line, start saying, you know, looking for a vendor and getting our order in so that those prices don't get even higher. Yeah, I said we don't have the crystal ball to tell you what the economy and everything else is gonna do, but it's my at least suggestion that we try and, you know, set some funds aside so that we can, when we need to, and also when opportunities come available, you know, let's say that a fire truck came available that made sense for us, you know, at some point in the future, then we would have those funds available to purchase that.
So are you saying combine them or separate them?
I personally.
They'd have to be earmarked that way. They'd have-
Yeah,
you
I
know,
would just earmark it as a replacement, like
Fund.
vehicle replacement fund, yeah, something like that.
Cause there's, you know, you can't
Right.
save $500,000 in 3 years to replace a
Right.
Oh, I know,
Right.
yeah.
pumper,
Yeah.
and then at the same time,
Right.
2 more years down the road,
Yeah,
replace an ambulance, and
Right.
yeah,
we just, you know,
We
the
just don't
tax
have-
rate
right.
no.
would not be able to be sustained.
Right.
But the
So-
way that I tried to lay out sort of on the replacement schedule, unfortunately, we shouldn't be in a position where we have to, you know, replace multiple vehicles back to back to back.
Right.
So,
No, I think what we should, I like the idea. I think one of the ways we can fund this is looking at what we have at the end of each budget season. Whatever is coming back to general fund, we can then turn around and earmark a percentage or,
Yeah.
you know, 50% of it or whatever into a fund to buy apparatus.
yeah,
Yeah.
And that way, we'll be building some kind of a fund up, and hopefully, you know, in 4 years, we'll have this ambulance paid off. And if we can continue, if the revenues continue to allow us to take that amount of money and put that away also, it'll help us down the road.
Right.
Because we know that the next thing we're gonna end up having to definitely have to get is another pumper, and last one was $550,000, so I'm thinking 700.
Well, actually, no, because our squad, that was 650. The one, the engine, which
Yeah.
is considered a pumper. The engine before that was, I think it was 2013 or 15, and that was 518. So right now, and actually, talking with the supply house that just sold us our ambulance, they're saying it's, the prices increase for engines are 2% quarterly. Quarterly, yes. So you look at 2 years, you're looking at 16%. So an engine right now, that'd be $900,000, would be 1.2 in 2 years. I don't know how they can possibly continue that, because every 2 years, I mean, in 10 years, you're trying to tell me an engine's gonna be $2.5 million? I like to think it's gotta stop somewhere. It can't keep going. It can't keep going, because people are gonna be able to, we're gonna have to go back to buckets.
Yeah.
You know, we're gonna have to go back to buckets. So, but,
Get them for free at Harbor Freight.
I'm sure they do, with the purchase, I heard that, so. But, yeah, I mean, fire trucks are out of control right now. Just as another thing, I heard that a fire truck, town over in New York State, was taking delivery of their brand-new C-grade ladder truck. And the company that supplied it said that, due to increases, that the quoted price, they need to add $200,000 to it. And the town said, we don't want the truck. So they were trying to, at the last minute, throw another $200,000 on top of a truck that they contracted at a certain price. And now then the town said, no, we don't want the truck. So there's a truck available, just letting you know.
At $5 million?
It's a ladder truck, probably, I think it's over $2 million, it's a ladder, so, but we'll get the ambulance paid for it.
Firefighter safety or something.
Question?
Yes.
Do you have a handout that Ethan worked on?
No, because we're still working on this is the first preliminary budget. So we're just trying to get things straightened out to start looking at actual hard budgets. So today's meeting is just, was just for us to do that. This is actually the first budget meeting we've ever had guests.
This makes it easier.
I understand. In the next one, there will be handouts. Like I said, we're just kind of looking at where we are and adjust what we have to do so we have hard numbers to start looking at. And that's why there's simple questions that we're asking today, like why isn't it here, but it was here last year, things like that. I will make sure there's handouts at the next one. Sorry. All right. And,
Can I,
yep.
sorry, just one other thing, which is not anywhere on here necessarily, it's just, I think if at some point we can have some direction in terms of, are we trying to make this building last for the next, 25 years and work for the fire department, or not, just in terms of trying to budget for maintenance and, repairs, et cetera. So at a certain point, we will have to move around the bunk rooms and stuff like that. So, just at some point, something to think about in the back of the mind. A little bit of, just curious what the commissioner's intent is there, so that we
Well,
can.
my mind is that I wanna move on it now, I don't wanna wait. Because if we're gonna design anything, we're probably talking a year anyways. I like to do it.
Are you talking renovation, or?
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
okay.
Town can't afford it,
No, I understand that,
Yeah.
you know? And I think with what I have in mind, I think it would work,
Okay,
you know?
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah, so that just, down the line will need to be budgeted for.
I mean, that's the hard part with this, a lot gets pushed down the line.
Yeah.
Just because of sheer dollar values. I mean,
Yeah.
we were just talking that the police station might be $22 million.
Yeah,
The high school was just built 2 years ago, that We just spent $350,000 for an ambulance. It's hard to get substantial amounts of money to do large buildings, replacements, things like that.
Yeah.
The state aid isn't there to help. If you get grants, you can get certain grants, but those grants, if you get those, lock you out of other grants, so you could never write enough grants to do anything that's not gonna go back to the taxpayers. And I know it's never gonna be, there'll never be an ideal point where everything's good, but
Yeah,
it, you know, what was the average town increase in taxes last year? Was like,
Well, my increase for the last 2 years was $2,200 on top of what I was
Yes, mine
paying.
went up 120 a month.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
it's hard. In a great world, we'd have, you know, good support from the state and we'd have some reserves to go after that, but it seems like everything we get in, we're spending to keep our operation running. So, I think that there's gotta be a way of finding some revenues that we can start collecting and putting aside for doing this. I know that, I think Lennox is spending 23 or 24 million dollars for its, building it's building on Housatonic Street, and I think Lee's gonna be like 35 million when they finally get planning done. And I know Williamstown, their fire station was 18 million.
yeah.
But the college gave them,
5.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, anybody wants to give us
Yeah.
5, we'll certainly take
Yeah, well,
that.
yeah, well,
You can just go around.
But I
asking
mean, you can
comments.
see even, you know, at 5, Williamstown had a hard time getting that thing off the ground.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
Right.
so, I think it's going to be hard. I think that, with regulations for buildings and what they end up being and how much buildings cost, it's a large number to put out.
Yeah, certainly.
So, and I'm not saying we're not deserving of it, I think we do need this, but, I mean, what's the cost gonna be?
Right.
I mean,
Right,
if, I know that when the high school went in, when that got passed, there was, I'm not gonna say a large, but there was an exodus of people from town, because they didn't wanna face that bill. They put their houses on the market and they moved someplace else. If we get to a point where that's going to be the next thing that happens that is going to bring the tax rates up so high that the next group of people can't stay here and they're gonna move out, it just means whatever revenues we have are going down. They're not, you know, unless we can get people to come in and take those places. So, we've been really kind of cautious about spending large amounts of money because it's hard to raise large amounts of money. And no matter how we look at town is an aging population still. We haven't flipped that. There's still more retired people and people living on, you know, their retirement and fixed income than there are people coming in with bigger paying jobs.
Yeah.
So until the town kind of turns over a little bit more, I don't think, you know, I think it's gonna be hard to do this. But I'm not giving up on it, I'm just saying,
yeah.
we gotta find different ways to do it.
Well, and I think to that end, again, you know, just my recommendation, but if similar to that vehicle replacement plan, we can start to just, you know, instead of having one big price tag, set money aside for, you know, engineering or et cetera, so that we have a place to get some funding to slowly chip away at it rather than having a big ticket item.
I definitely agree with that. And I think the hard part that we've faced in the last 3.5 to 4 years is that bringing the ambulance on and getting it up and running, we've basically spent our income to try to get that going.
Yeah.
So we don't have a lot of free cash at this point. And so hopefully the budget will start to generate some free cash if we can, you know, be really diligent on spending what the line item budgets get to be. Something comes back to the general fund, which will give us some money to start putting aside for other things that we need to do. So hopefully that'll happen down the road, working that. All right, any comment on fire? Nothing, all right. Administration? Again, everything else, everything in expenses looks fairly level funded from last year. A little more for training, but we definitely need to have the training funds to keep up on the changes in the laws.
Now for, special, what are they called?
Special meeting.
No, for, capital projects, what is the price for that one? What is it, it's over a certain amount?
Over 10,000. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so I spoke to Vadar for putting in my new accounting software, and they told me that there's a consulting firm that will come in and do training to show me everything from, entering journal entries to doing free cash, tax rate. And I talked to them, and they said the first year it would be about $20,000 for training.
How many, if I may ask, how many people will they train at one time?
They didn't say, so I imagine however many people's there. And then, or it's $150 an hour. And that after doing it 1 year with them training and walking me through it, then after that I should be fine and be able to. So Vadar will come in and train me how to use the software, and then it's called Kinsher. They'll come in, consulting firm, and show me how to use UMIS accounting. They've set up other water and fire districts in Massachusetts so it can go everywhere from the beginning to the end, doing free cash, so that we can go back to Scanlon just doing the auditing.
Okay.
Follow up on Dan, would it behoove us to hire a full-time, part-time assistant? So we'd have another one that's trained in this in case Mel's sick or Mel.
Well, we have Louise who's here part-time. You've seen Louise,
Well,
right?
yeah, is she full-time, part-time? or
She's
can-
part-time.
Can she do that training?
I'm sure if I asked her, right now she just does other odds and ends in the office, but
I think we should almost go back to when Debbie was here, when Barb, I don't know how many hours she got a week or whatever it was,
She was working 20 hours a week.
something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if we have to have 20 hours, but I think we should go back to something where it's so many hours every week or every month, or so many hours a year.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that office is getting to the point where it's getting out of control, because there's so much paperwork.
Melanie gave me some paperwork to look at that was very helpful. I appreciate that, thank you. But everything I looked at, everybody I talked about, everybody's got an assistant. There'll be a treasurer, collector, it might be titles, but they all have an assistant. Some of the departments have more than one assistant, but it's a much larger population. It's not a question of the job Melanie does, she does a great job. But I think that with the total volume of things that we should look at, having an assistant in there for how many hours you determine a week. I'd like to see somebody that has some training in office work coming in, so that Melanie doesn't have to train the person and everything as it goes along. And I don't know what Louise's training is, and she does great work when she's here doing it, but I just think it's something that the district should look at, because it's getting to the point, I think, where it's just going to be overwhelming. You're doing most of the ambulance reporting and everything now too, right?
no, we have a billing agent that does all the billing of the ambulance
Okay.
bills.
All right, I was misunderstood on that.
Well, but she's still doing the scheduling,
Payroll,
the payroll.
stuff like
Yeah.
that. So-
Yeah,
And you figure back when Deb and Sherry and those guys were here, they all had an assistant, and that's back when we were a volunteer department.
And they didn't have an ambulance.
Right, so now that we're a full-time department, they have payroll, they have
Yeah, I gave Dan a list of all my duties.
So,
Yeah,
so
thank
there,
you.
so there's more, twice as much work with one less person.
Yes,
You know, but with assistance from employees, of course.
I just think it's something that the district should consider. You know, the last thing we need is to all of a sudden have something, you know, happen to her. She's putting in 70 hours a week, something like that in some weeks. You know, having the backup if needed, I think would be a good idea to look at.
I agree. The only thing is, I don't think we're gonna be able to put that into this budget.
Okay,
Only because we put the money in, but we have to find somebody and hire them, for next year. I mean, I guess it's possible. We'd have to figure out what that payroll would be, and we'd have to make sure we can cover that.
Yeah.
And, you know, the realization is whatever her budget is gets split between the other two departments. She does not generate income, or the office doesn't generate income. So the whatever we put on this, it actually goes on to the fire side and the water side at 50%, on a 50-50 split.
and I can tell you this, from when I did the research on these departments they had, it's crazy. There was one, Truro, I think it was on the Cape, that, you know, the population is roughly the same as ours, but the pay scales for the different people in the departments. When you look it up, you see everything. You see the chief, you see the assistant chief, you see the clerks and everything else. But, you know, it's on the Cape, you know, and starting patrol officers, I know a few years ago was $120,000.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, you have to skew it back towards where you are versus, you know, what you would have. I could not find anything that showed a consistent number
No.
for what to pay an assistant and things like that, which would be an issue, but I think it is something that would be beneficial for the district.
We have time to look into it, and we have time to see if we can to move it into the budget, so.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions?
Well, is your increase because of the time you're putting in, is that, you know,
The time and the work.
again, I think you're gonna get overwhelmed, and I don't care if you're getting $200,000 a year. You know, you won't be able to keep up with all this. That's why I'm agreeing with Dan that we should look at an assistant to, you know, to help you. Not that you're not doing a good job, I'm not saying that at all. It's just, seems to be getting more and more overwhelming for you.
Just some point, she gave me the sheet, which is very helpful. Her duties, it's 3 pages with 10 to 20 items on most things for what she has to do. I don't know how she can break down her hours.
I don't know how she
I
can.
couldn't figure out how to break it down, I created
Either-
that this morning,
That's,
because I didn't know how to break down the
Because
hours.
I've been in the office and she'll be working on something, and then all of a sudden, within a couple minutes, the phone rings 2 or 3 times, she's gotta stop doing what she's doing.
I've seen the same
Go
thing.
solve that problem, and I don't know how she does it. I don't know how she does it.
and she has those pesky people from the Prudential Committee goes in and asks them a question. What does this mean? And she's always got great answers for it, so.
So
I
you
just-
could list 5 things you've done last week. Right?
Yeah,
5 things I've done.
I'm just kidding.
yeah.
Any other questions on the meeting? All right, I'll move adjourn.
Second?
Then move to second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.